Hello guys, this is Hassan Bossot Electricals. Today we are going to do a direct online starter which is switching multiple. What I mean is we have our stop button here, one, and then another stop button here, and we'll have start button here, and we'll have another start button here. So that's multi-switching stop and a start buttons. And we'll have our contactor here, and this is our overload, and this is our power source incoming. So let's see how it is. So now let's see the diagram first. You see that the diagram, direct online starter switching in multiple switching. So we can have a stop and then start button with different position of your installation, and we'll have another one to stop and then start different position in your installation or your factory. So let's see how the diagram is. So you see the diagram, we have our life coming from the supply to the overload of the overload relay. So from the overload relay, the life, it will come to number 95 overload. 95, what I mean is that's NO, normal open of the overload. And then from the overload, that's 96 to the stop button of the of the push buttons. That's stop button number 1. You see the stop button number 1, and then this is the stop button number 2. So let's see. From the overload, we pick cable from the overload to the stop button number 1. From the stop button number 2 to another stop button number 1. From another stop button number 2 to the start button number 3. And then from the start button number 3, we loop to the another start button number 3. From that start button number 3, we loop it to the contactor hold on the 13 normal open there. So we now come back to the start button number 4. We pick the cable from the start button number 4 to the to another start button number 4. From that start button number 4, we loop to the contactor hold on, which is normal 14 of the contactor. So we now come back to the start button. From the start button number 4, we loop it to the A1 of the contactor, and then we pick our neutral from our source to the A2 of the contactor. So let's see how the wiring is done. So let's start the supply first. You see, this is our neutral from the supply. From our neutral from the supply, come to the A2 of the contactor. You see the diagram, neutral to A2 of the contactor. So we now come back from our source, we pick our life to the overload relay, which is 95. So from the 96 of the overload to the from 96 overload to the stop button. So you see the cable going to the stop button number 1. From the stop button number 1, we pick stop button number 2. From that stop button to the next stop button, which is number 1. So you see the diagram, from the live to the overload, from the overload to the stop button number 1. From the stop button number 2 to the another stop button number 1. From another stop button number 2 to the start button number 3. So let's see the cable. You see the stop button number 2 to the start button number 3. Start button number 3, which is normal open. Start button number 3. So from the start button number 3, we pick it to the another start button number what, number 3. So this is start button number 3, start button number 3. So from the start button number 3, we loop it to the what, to the normal 13, normal 13 of the contactor. You see the 13 NO, which is normal open. You see the diagram. When you loop the when you pick the cable from the start button, you will come to the what, loop it to the what, next start button. From the next start button to the what, number 13 normal open of the contactor. So this is number 13 of the what, of the contactor, normal open. So we now come back to the 4 of the what, of the start button. So from the 4 of the start button, we pick it to the what, to next start button. From the next start button number 4, we loop it to the what, to the to the hold on of the contactor, which is number 14 of the contactor. So let's go back to the wiring. You see that we pick our distance, we pick that's the stop button number 4. You see the cable, you see the cable, you see the cable to the what, 4 of the what, of the stop button. So from the 4 of the stop button, it will come to the what, to the A1 of the contactor, to the what, A1 of the contactor. As you can see the diagram, the start button start from the 4 to the next start button number 4 and loop it to the what, hold on of the contactor. And you see that cable, that line going through the start button is also going to the what, A1. So if you want, you can pick the 14 to the A1 throughout, or you pick it from the what, from the start button number 4. So let's go back to the wiring. You see from the start button number 4, this is the cable, this is the cable going to the what, start button number 4. So from the start button number 4, we loop it to the what, A1 of the contactor. You see the A1 of the contactor. So after the A1 of the contactor, we now loop it back to the what, to the 14 NO, 14 NO. So if you want, you can take the number 4 of the start button, come on back to the what, to the 14. After that, you now loop it back to the what, to the A1. And then if you want, you can just put it on A1, and now, and after that you loop it to the what, to the 14 normal open. So 14 normal open. So after that, you see the diagram. You now pick your neutral to the what, A2 of the contactor. So this is our neutral source, come to our A2 of the contactor. So let's see how our wiring is working. So don't forget, please subscribe, share, like. So you see the diagram. So when you follow the diagram, you can do your own project. You can do your own project. So let's see how we can test it. So let's switch on our supply. So when we press the start button, you'll see that the contactor, it will switch on. When we press the stop button, the contactor, it will go off. And then we'll have another one here. We can start the motor here and off it here and off it here, or we can what, we can start the motor here and off it here, and we can start the motor here and off it here. So this one you can put it different position, and this one too you can put it different position. Any of them can switch the motor, and then any of them can what, can stop the motor. So let's see, we on our supply. So let's press here. You see that the contactor is switched on. So let's press here. You see that the contactor is switched off. So let's start it here. you see that the contactor is switched on. So let's stop it here. You see that the contactor is what is stop, and then let's start it here and off it here. So as you can see, you see that the contactor is switched on, and when you press here it will go off. When you start the motor here, you can off it here, you can start here, off it here, you can start here, and then what, and off it here. So thank you for watching Hassan Bossot Electricals. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.